about some really interesting things that I think are extremely impactful over the next couple of years. And so today we're doing our second webinar in a series. We're talking about AI influenced buyers. That's buyers that are now using AI in their entire process. Today is the second webinar where we're diving in on answer engine optimization and the idea that we have to adapt our sales and marketing to how people are now discovering, evaluating, considering, and deciding using AI. We'll have an upcoming webinar soon where we're going to be diving into AI specifically for sales and how salespeople can take advantage of how folks are using AI during the sales process. So let's go ahead and dive right in. If you don't know me, I'm Andy Helko, CEO of Incivia. I actually started the company 24 years ago, and we have worked with clients all over the world. I recently released a book called The Omniscient Buyer because I really believe that companies need to pay attention to how their target audiences are using AI. We also have a product called Buyer Twin, where we help people create AI clones of their target audience. So let's go ahead and dive in and really get into this topic. So I want to start out and share one of the things that really drives me. Human psychology throughout my entire time owning an agency has been a keystone of what I do. I really believe that companies that understand the psychology of their buyers, how people make decisions, what influences them, how they go about their day. All of these things impact the product that you create, the marketing that you put out, the sales process, how you provide customer service. Humans are at the center of that. And if you understand their psychology, you can truly create impact. And now, because I'm someone that I started out in the tech space, AI has just consumed me as many other people. It is a trend that is unstoppable. It is coming for all of us and something that we must adapt into our workflow and our thinking about how the world is working. There's really no way around it. And so for me, I have a ton of interest in where these two things are converging, where human psychology and artificial intelligence are coming to a head together and really changing everything, especially within marketing and sales. Now, one of the core tenets of what I've been trying to share with folks is that everybody's focused on how to leverage AI internally. They want to drive things like efficiency and speed. They want to figure out how to automate, reduce costs, scale their organization. They're figuring out what tools they can embed. They're really focused on this idea of how do we leverage AI. But for me, what I really want people to start paying attention to is that it's not just what we do with AI, but it's our target audience. And that the people that we're trying to influence every day, whether that's to pay attention to us, to buy our product, to sign up for a demo, to maintain a customer relationship with, those people are using AI almost all the time in their decision making, discovery, all of these different things. And it's actually changing their psychology. I got into it a lot in my last webinar, but it's really changing the way people think and their expectations. They want things faster, they expect answers, not effort. There are a lot of factors that are really changing about humans and the way they think and what their expectations are. And if we, as marketing and salespeople, are not adapting to that, it's really going to be trouble for us to try and influence our own growth if we're not thinking about this change in a big way. And so I really focus a lot of time on this idea of the AI influenced buyer, this buyer that has changed who they are because they're using and adopting AI themselves. So today we're talking a lot about visibility, answer engine optimization. It's a really hot topic. And I think there's a reason for it. And there's a lot of SEO people out there that are trying to argue that search isn't dead. I'm one of those people that thinks that it is, uh, even if it's not dead, it is sure on its way out. And there's one simple reason: human psychology. Search is full of friction and pain. It's hard to think back in some ways to the process of searching, but I go back and think about I would search something, potentially I would refine what my search was because the results weren't right. I would potentially click on multiple of those links into new tabs. Then I would go across those tabs and I would actually browse the websites, try and interpret the content, come up with my answer, maybe determine which of those tabs I was going to keep open or close, maybe come back to it a little bit later and read some more so I can interpret. That's a friction filled process. If you think about it, search, all it did was deliver us just a bunch of links, and there was a ton of effort after that. Now, AI, on the other hand, delivers answers. We ask a question, it is compiling that, it is finding all those resources, bringing them together, and it is compiling them and providing a direct answer for us. And then, because it's in a chat format, we can continue to refine that in a conversational way. And so there's no going back and looking at new websites and adding new context into your thought process. It's very simple and easy. And one thing that humans hate is friction, pain, effort. And so, for that one reason, that humans do not want the effort involved, we will see that search will go away. There is no reason for it anymore. And all users eventually, even if they're not there today, will adapt to using AI as the way that they find, discover, evaluate, etc. And so this is something that is unstoppable at this point, and mainly because human psychology is driving it. Now, one of the things that I think is really important for folks to pay attention to right now is that this is not just a marketing conversation, it's a sales conversation. And there's a reason for that. When it came to search, the majority of it was marketing and visibility. If you ranked in search engines, your link showed up, you were visible, but then someone went to your website. They learned about you. They would open up other tabs and they would compare you to those different folks through website. They would reach out to a salesperson and have a conversation. And so the majority of what search influenced was your visibility, your discoverability. Now, with AI, that has shifted significantly because people aren't just finding, they're not just saying, you know, give me a short list of these types of companies. They're going in, they're asking for comparisons, they're going in and they're uploading proposals, they're doing all of these different things that are now tasks that your website used to provide and even your sales team used to provide. And so now we've really got to think about the shift that AI and answer engines are not just about visibility, they are about sales, marketing and sales together. And in some ways, they're a greater influence to sales than they even are to marketing. And so, one of the things that we have to think about is that answer engines influence across the whole journey. And they're really a silent, invisible co pilot for a buyer throughout the entire process. And this is one way that I've been thinking about it in my head is that someone has this assistant or co pilot that's sitting next to them during everything that they do, and they're influencing, they're whispering in their ear. And so we look at stages like awareness, where it's who is best for my specific situation. You might say, I need an ERP system for a manufacturing company of 30 to 40 employees that does this product. Who is the best for me? And AI is really creating a very specific answer based off of that criteria. Consideration. Will they be able to support my key challenge based on all that you know about me? And so the AI engine looks back at all the questions and prompts that you've done earlier and the challenges that you've brought up about your organization. And it uses that as context to say, okay, does this company actually solve what I need based on what you know about me? Evaluation. Provide me a side by side comparison with these 10 factors and any other criteria you think is important. Now, this one's interesting because what I'm seeing is that AI is being asked to actually create evaluation criteria for people. They go into AI and they say, well, tell me what I should be comparing. Tell me what I should be considering when I'm buying this type of product. And then they're using AI to actually provide that comparison. And AI delivers a table that has check marks and says, okay, this company is this company doesn't. So it's really delivering the evaluation that used to happen when someone browsed a website and compared across tabs. Decision. Review this proposal and documentation I was set and tell me what is missing. And so now people are really uploading the emails, the sales documents, the proposal, linking website, etc., and saying, walk me through this decision. Tell me what this proposal is missing. Tell me whether there's value here. Give me a list of questions that I should ask this vendor. And so it's really now becoming part of the decision process. And because AI tends to be so confident, a lot of times it will say, here are the 5 questions that you should ask. And if they can't answer them, consider someone else. And so this isn't just a passive voice during the sales process. This is an active voice giving recommendations in a confident tone. And then the final one, loyalty. Review the project summaries and billing statements and tell me if there are better alternatives. I'm seeing this already that in procurement space, they're training procurement teams, they're building into procurement software ways to evaluate existing vendors using AI and real-time surface alternatives if the AI determines that they should change vendors. And so what we're really seeing is that search used to maybe impact awareness. They might touch on consideration a little bit, but it never got into the rest. That was your website and sales team. But now AI is really owning that whole journey, all the way from the second that they find out who you are to when they sign a contract or decide that they're going to renew. So the next thing that I really wanted to provide some insight on was measuring presence. If it's true that people are moving to AI engines and it's true that they are using it for the entire journey, the one thing that we want to know is, do we show up and what does it say about us in these AI engines? And so, is it extremely important for you to understand whether you're visible and what the narrative is about your company? Yes, it's extremely important. Can you get an accurate view of what the visibility and narrative are? Mostly no. And this is a contradiction to what a lot of folks are saying out there. You have big platforms, new platforms that are coming out to help you understand AI visibility. But the reality is that there is some complexity to it. And I would rather not blow smoke and instead tell you what the reality is, because then what we can do is figure out how to combat it. And the reality is that by AI's very nature, it doesn't deliver the same results. You can put the same prompt in your AI platform 5 times, and it will give you different outputs. That is just the nature of how it's built, that it is using predictability to determine what word to put next. And it changes its algorithm and the way it looks at that predictability. And so it's really by its nature not something that is going to bring consistent results. Whereas search in the old days, if you put in a search phrase, there was some level of consistency to it. The other thing that matters right now is there's no dominant player. In the old days of search, we knew that Google was 70 to 75% of market share. And if you ranked there, you had really good chance of having that visibility and presence. But now with AI, it's such a mixed field. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, and all of these have mixed use. Some people are using multiple at the same time. And so it's just a very different world now of what you have to pay attention to. The next is that there's significant differences between the models free and paid. So what you get asked in a free version of ChatGPT is very different than what you get if you put into a paid version. I did this recently, and the free version gave me complete hallucinations on one question, and on the same question when I did in the paid version, it gave me hyper accurate answers. And then all of these AI engines are releasing new models, and a lot of the users can choose which model they use. And every one of the models has a different algorithm for how it produces outputs. And so this isn't one cut and dry situation. The other is that AI leverages your past discussions as context. So any visibility tool out there that is, sending in prompts and trying to get that information back, uh, they do not have the context history of the buyer, of the person that's actually using the AI. So that doesn't mean that it will reflect what that person is going to see. And then AI is not a single question, it's a narrative. People go in and start with a prompt. A lot of times they're describing their situation, then they're asking something, it gets an answer, and then they refine it and they refine it and they ask more questions. They expand it, they refine it again. This is very different than search, where you would put in some prompt for something in the search box and you would get a list of results, and maybe you would change that search a little bit, but more likely you would go through multiple pages to find the result that you were looking for. It's a very different dynamic. And so there's a reality too right now that if you're trying to measure your visibility and what the narrative is, it's not that simple. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. And the information that we get give us a signal in a direction, but it is not a hard, fast truth that what you see out of any visibility tool or your own testing is what your end user will see. And so, one of the things that I'm really pushing folks to do is pay attention from a standpoint of your analytics. This is showing AI engine traffic that's coming from AI engines into a website using Google Analytics. And you can see here ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, and the growth. This is over a couple of years, pretty much from nothing to a significant amount. And if you pay attention to a lot of websites, you'll be seeing that search traffic is going down and this traffic from answer engines is going up. And so if you go into your Google Analytics and you're not paying attention to the amount of traffic that's coming in from these different AI engines, that's an area that's very telling of whether you're actually getting results. It doesn't mean everything, because you can show up in an AI engine, people can continue the prompt and they can reach out to you even beyond clicking to your website, but it is a strong indicator of whether you do have visibility. So if anything, I would start here and make sure that you can see that you at least have traffic coming from these different AI engines. Now, one thing that's really important here is that we are going to be seeing that traffic is going to lessen on our websites. All of us are going to see that the amount of people that visit the website will go down. And one of the reasons for this is because in the days of search, people didn't get the answer. They had to click the website to get the answer. So when they would do a search, they would open a bunch of tabs. Then they would go and evaluate and they'd close the tab if for some reason that didn't fit. Or if they asked a question, they might go see an article and come back and do a commercial search later. With AI, it's delivering answers right in its chat and it's continuing the conversation there. And so what you're going to see is a lot of that traffic that used to come to the site of looky-loos, people that were just trying to figure out if this was the right site, if this was the right answer, that traffic will go away. But what won't go away and probably will increase are visitors with higher intent. That the people that actually end up landing on your website will have already gone through a process of evaluation. And so by the time they actually get to your site, they have significantly higher intent to be buyers and customers than previous. And so this doesn't mean that our websites are less important. In some ways, it means that they're more important because what we want to happen is we want to make sure that these higher intent folks have the absolute best experience possible. They're getting the validation that they need to move forward. And a lot of times now we're looking at trying to prove, validate, and confirm what AI is saying instead of educate the buyer or teach them about a topic or what we do. And so it's a real shift in mindset of what is the purpose of the website when it's not there to educate, it's there to just validate. So one of the tools that we have, because now we want to start thinking about what does AI care about? What do these AI engines care about? We've actually built the periodic table of answer engine optimization. And you can find this on our site if you search periodic table of answer engine optimization. You will actually get this. And it's a great tool for you and it's interactive where you can see different columns and you can click on different pieces to learn a little bit more. And so, what I think you need to pay attention to are the changes in how this differs from search. And we actually used to have a periodic table of search engine optimization. But some of the things that you'll see here are really driving towards authority. We have things like factual credibility, follow up questions, and question framing. It's why you're seeing a lot of people talk about developing frequently asked questions, doing schema data as the structured data, really looking at brand mentions and reputation validation. There are a lot of different factors that are influencing these AI engines. And so this gives you an opportunity to really look through and determine, what do we need to change? And so I won't go a whole ton into this, but more I'm going to start now talking about how do we strategically influence a lot of these different factors at once so that we can have visibility and solid narrative in AI engines. So the place that we need to look at if we want to answer the periodic table of answer engine optimization factors is that this is different than search optimization. And so, for those that are out there that are trying to do search optimization with a slight little shift for AI, that is not going to be enough. There has to be a much more significant strategic approach to making change. And so, in the old days, people used the term thought leadership a lot. This was often linear and disconnected. You were kind of creating topics over time. People would blog. Most companies did not have long term strategies. They would develop blogs as ideas came up. And so this is really expertise that's scattered, proof is isolated, the positioning can be inconsistent, and AI gets less confidence from you when you have this type of model. And so, really, what we're talking about is creating an authority system and building a focused, intensive, connected strategy. And so it's not about winning a mention that in search someone was doing some sort of search query and the search engine was trying to find the single page that best matched that search. AI is different. It's looking for authority on topics and using that information to guide the answer that it's providing. And so now it's really for me about creating a 1 to 2 year authority advantage that compounds. That the idea isn't about a linear, constantly changing thought leadership approach. It's more about determining this is the area that we know we want to have authority in for the next year to 3 years. And here's a system we can build to make sure that we create a foundation for that authority. We keep building upon it over the time and make sure that it compounds. And so it's really this idea of this tight connected network of authority that you can build. And so the big thing we have to think about is that AI is not rewarding content volume. That might have worked in search because there are a wide range of searches, and in many cases, the search engine was looking for the single page that best matched that result to deliver it. And it would take in factor some of the external pieces of other pages and your overall context, but it was looking to match pages to a search. With AI, it rewards structured authority. And so we really want to look at building a connected, uh, interpretable, buyer relevant authority system. And again, that word connected is very key in this because it's truly about creating an authority ecosystem, which drives us into what we've determined is the atomic model for authority. And this is something that we've developed that we really think answers what AI engines are looking for and a building an authority system that is connected. And so the way that we look at this is we develop an ecosystem where it's a broad authority topic. We want to be focused on answer engine optimization, or we want to be focused on, legal procurement technology. There's a specific topic that we want authority on, and we'll see in a second that we tie that to commercial intent. And then we develop multiple organisms within our ecosystem. So this breaks that high level topic into some substantial strategic topics that we can really dive into. And so now with the AI engine, they're looking at okay, you've got this broad topical authority, and it starts to break down to specificity. We then go into molecules, which there are multiple molecules in each organism. This is where we get into like a narrow concept, a problem, a tension, a misconception. And so this really breaks it down to that one thing that often the buyers are looking for. And molecules a lot of times relate directly to the prompts that people are using or the discussions that they're having within AI. And then each molecule has multiple atoms. And this is where we get really surgical on a topic. This isn't like old blogs where you might talk at a higher level. This is about getting extremely minute within that molecule. We're taking a problem and we're breaking it up into multiple atoms that really get the specificity. These aren't long, they're not 1,500 words, they're 500 words, and they answer a very specific idea or question within that molecule. And so, what this does when you look at it structurally is really that AI engines see that you have broad topic authority, but it maps down to specificity. And that hierarchy is really what gives intent to AI engines to know that you have authority on a topic, that you're not just talking at a broad level about, something. You're actually going down into specificity. And then on the reverse side, you're not just getting into one single topic. You have this big ecosystem of connected ideas that say that you have authority on the overall topic. We also have particles in our authority system that are really about connections, and so we typically look at particles as breadcrumbs, frequently asked questions, next links within articles and previous links, and so really creating those points, the lines that connect all of our dots, are what particles do. And so it really does build this strong authority ecosystem that tells AI engines, we own this topic. And so this is a really important strategy and approach if you want to have that authority to be visible and tell the right story in AI engines when people ask. So now let's talk a little bit about how we take that authority system and actually, build it. One of the things we want to do first is define buying intent. That should be the start. What is the commercial intent that we're trying to achieve? At the end of the day, we're all trying to make money. It's not just authority for authority's sake, it's actually to create commercial intent. So things start there. Then we want to map prompt behavior. This is actually stepping back and really thinking about your target audience and what their mindset is going into AI and what they ask and how they refine it and the conversations that they have. For us, that's why we have our Buyer Twin product, because we narrow it down and say that a manufacturing CRO has a very different prompt behavior than a manufacturing, CMO. And those two roles are going to ask very different questions. And so if you're going in and saying, oh, my audience prompts these things, and you're thinking about it at a very high level, you really shouldn't be doing that. What you want to do is map it down to an industry, company size, specific role, and then think about the prompts that they would ask at that level, because it's very different between different roles within companies. Then we want to develop a unique point of view. One of the important things with AI engines is if you have the same answer as everybody else, when it actually provides the answer to the person prompting, it's going to pull all of those together into one generic answer and just provide it. On the reverse side, if you have a really unique position about something, when it delivers that answer, it's going to add a sidebar, an extra sentence that says, here's this viewpoint on the topic that you just asked, and it will provide a reference. And so it's really important that this ecosystem that you develop and these organisms are really creating a unique point of view that the AI engine can actually reference when it delivers an answer. Then we want to build that authority structure. You can see here, this is one that we've developed for ourselves where we break down the ecosystem, the organisms, the molecules, and the concepts. And this continues to go through multiple organisms and multiple molecules. And all of this is connected. And this is a strategy that is not one blog randomly at a time. This is actually us saying, okay, in the next year, we want to build authority on this topic. Here's what it's going to look like. Doesn't mean we can't make minor changes over time, but this is how we build authority. And we are going to stay focused on this idea of building this ecosystem of authority. Then we want to structure it for readability. So this is how we connect all of these different pieces through links, adding schema data, adding frequently asked questions. Within some of these, we tend to put FAQs at the molecule level and then leave atoms to stay very surgical. This is an approach that answer engines see the authority, but then they have direct questions and answers that they can reference. And then the biggest thing is it's about creating for influence and not volume. We're not just creating all of these topics to have a wide range. We're actually thinking about those prompts, tying together all of these different things so that we are creating authority to influence people and not just create a bunch of disconnected content. And so hopefully that's given you a sense of how the market has changed. In my opinion, right now, that our buyers, our users, everyone that we are trying to influence as our end customer, they are different than they've ever been. And every single one of our departments, everybody in our company needs to shift to adapt to this. And so that's marketing, product sales, support, pricing, onboarding. Everything needs to be thought around this. And this especially becomes important when we talk about answer engine optimization and the fact that people are using that through the entire journey to find, consider, evaluate, and decide who they should work with. And so, if you want to learn more, I put these slides with some additional resources up on our website. You can check out my book, The Omniscient Buyer, which really digs in a very in-depth way about how buyers and their mindset is shifting in this world and what you need to do to adapt to it. And if you need, reach out to Incivia. We're happy to help you navigate this whole new world and adapt to these AI influenced buyers. I hope you'll join me for the next webinar. We're going to continue this series and talk about how companies can take advantage of everything that's changing and stay ahead of their competition. Thanks, everybody, and talk to you soon.